Good morning. So many thoughts running through my mind right now. The highest of which is thank you, God, for special dispensation. And I'm excited to be here this morning. So always a pleasure to be here. I love the energy when I come here. You know, I speak at different groups and I say, you know, you really got to get out to Southampton. Because the people here obviously practice spiritual principles because you can feel it when you walk in the room, when you feel the energy. Yeah. I always think I see so many new faces when I come here. Am I seeing a lot of new faces? Okay, then. Okay, I'm on time today. In his book, The Planetary Commission, John Randolph Price wrote, "We each have a memory of our divinity hidden within, under sense layers of consciousness, a faint mental impression, an idea that we were once perfect, whole, and complete. And the longing that we feel around Christmas time is that unfulfilled awareness at a very deep level that we already are divine." So as we awaken to this idea that we're divine and become conscious of the fact that within us is this magnificent presence, this loving essence, this infinite intelligence of God, we can naturally experience and express the gifts of spirit. In the Bible in Galatians in 6:22, we read, "And the gifts of spirit are love, peace, joy, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control, against which there is no law." And so it is our job as spiritual beings to unwrap, if you will, the gifts of spirit, which give us the ability to express life to its fullest with joy and exuberance, and to be at peace with ourselves and the world, and to have health and abundance. Excuse me. And so each year at this time at New Thought Centers around the world, we acknowledge that Jesus' birth is the time for remembering the spiritual truths that Christ is being born within us too. And so New Thought teaches that Jesus came to affirm our own Christ potential. And this idea is the fundamental difference between traditional religion and the New Thought teachings. Now, Christmas is about birthing the Christ consciousness within us. It's about evoking the presence of God in our lives, consciously doing so. And there's a very beautiful story in Luke, and also those of you who has the Signs of Mind textbook by Ernest Holmes, that big fat tomb. Check out chapter 22 this month. I encourage you to read about his interpretation of Jesus. And so in the chapter of Luke, we hear about the story of Jesus' birth, and it's an allegorical account. And I'd like to review it briefly. Here's to those who've seen us at our best and at our worst and don't know the difference. The virgin birth is at the core of this Christmas story, and the idea of a virgin birth is not limited to the Bible. According to Joseph Campbell, remember watching Channel 13? Yeah. Joseph Campbell said practically every mythology in the world has used a virgin birth to refer to spiritual rather than historical reality. And so in order to bring forth the new idea, we must have a new consciousness. And so the word virgin means a young girl, an unmarried woman. And so to birth the Christ consciousness, we must be open and receptive and not tied or wed to any previous ideas. Jesus was born in Bethlehem. Bethlehem metaphysically means the house of bread, and it symbolizes a place of substance. Bethlehem is the substance center in us where the union of love and wisdom takes place, our direct inheritance from God, love and wisdom, divine ideas, and the Christ nature is brought forth. Now, Christ is a title. The Greek word means Christos, the anointed one of God. And so Christ is the divine idea of man. It is our true higher spiritual nature that is within every individual. Ernest Holmes said in the textbook, Chapter 22, Christ is the embodiment of divine sonship, which has come with varying degrees of power to people in all ages and to every person to some degree. Christ is a universal presence, and as the human gives way to the divine in all people, they become the Christ. Now, God, being all that is found in all of creation, and we are a center activity for the consciousness of God. Now, that's huge. I'd love for you to make a mental note of that and meditate on it. We are a center for the activity of the consciousness of God. So God is individualized in us, through us, and as us, as the attributes of light, life, love, peace, power, beauty, joy, and wisdom. And these attributes symbolize the Christ energy or the Christ consciousness. Now, New Thought teaches that Jesus came to affirm our Christ potential. Ernest Holmes said to believe that Jesus came to the world merely to expose his own divinity would to miss the meaning of his whole life and teaching, for he came as the great example and not the great exception. However, in some spiritual religious denominations, that message has gotten a little lost. And excuse me. And so we want to keep this idea as Jesus as the great example. Now, in New Thought, we don't deny the divinity of Jesus, but we affirm the divinity of all people. And we don't deny that Jesus was the Son of God, but we affirm that all people are sons of God, children of God. And we don't deny that the kingdom of God was revealed through Jesus, but we believe also that the kingdom of God is revealed between you and I. Ernest Holmes, Christ is the embodiment of divine sonship, which has come with varying degrees of power to all people in all ages and to every person to some degree. And as the human gives way to the divine, they become the Christ. And so then we can say we are spiritual beings having a spiritual experience. How many was going to say human? Say with me, we are spiritual beings having a spiritual experience. So I want to look at two gifts of our Christ nature. One of them is joy. The nature of God is pure joy, and joy is truly having a relationship with God. It's knowing that we're unique and valuable creations, and joy has no opposite. And it's not dependent on circumstances, and it doesn't change because of circumstances, because joy is an inside job. You could be in the hospital, experience a healing with 3 casts on your body, and experience profound joy, because it has nothing to do with the outer experience. As a spiritual coach, and this year it was 30 years this summer. I know. I've heard from people say to me, Reverend, they call me Rev or Skipper, and they say, you know, life has passed me by. Do you notice how life gets, you know, it's the more you live, how life seems to go faster? Have you noticed that? And so they say, well, you know, I didn't make the best decisions, and I should have done this, and I could have done that, and I would be really happy right now, and this would have been, and that would have been, and on and on. And I think to myself, you can always begin anew. And it reminds me of the story of Itzhak Perlman, the violin virtuoso. You're familiar? He gave a concert in 1995 at Lincoln Center. And if you know about Perlman, getting on the stage is no small achievement, because he was stricken with polio as a child, and he had those locked braces on both legs, and he walks with crutches. And so this particular performance began like every performance he gives, excuse me, but then something went wrong. Just as he was about to begin the first few bars, one of the strings on his violins broke. You could hear it snap because it sounded like gunfire went out all across the room. And there was no mistaking what that sound meant. He was going to have to lock his braces, pick up the crutches, you know, and slowly get off the stage, find a replacement, find a string, whatever he needed to do. But he didn't do that. He didn't do that. Instead, what he did is he closed his eyes, he paused, he took a deep breath, he exhaled, and he signaled the conductor to begin again. And so the orchestra began, and they played from where he had left off, and they played, and then Perlman started to play, and he played with more passion and more power and more purity than he had ever played before. Now, anybody who knows anything about playing a violin, you know, it's impossible to play a symphonic work with just 3 strings. But that night, Isaac Perlman refused to know the impossible. He claimed he was going to do it, and he did it. And now I have a quote from this woman who experienced the concert, and she said, you could see him modulating, changing, recomposing the piece in his head. And at one point, it sounded like he was detuning the strings to get sounds from them that they'd never made before. And when he finished, there was this awesome silence in the room. And then the people rose and they cheered, and there was this amazing outburst of applause from every corner of the auditorium. People were on their feet, screaming and cheering, doing everything they could show to how much appreciation for what he had done, unquote. Isaac Perlman smiled. He wiped the sweat from his brow. He raised his bow to silence the crowd, and he didn't say this boastfully. He apparently said it in a very quiet, reverent tone, and he said, you know, sometimes it's the artist's task to find how much music you can still make with what you have left. So no matter where we find ourselves in our lives, we can always begin anew, and we can always live in joy and peace, just as Isaac Perlman spoke of. Isn't that a fantastic story? So it gives you a real sense of, yeah, I can do that. I love that. So this leads us into the next gift, peace. There is a core of peace inside of every single one of us. It is unchanging and transcendent. This core of peace can transcend the circumstances that you find yourself in. And I am exhibiting that this morning. So, the master teacher Jesus told his disciples, let your heart not be troubled, neither let it be afraid. My peace I leave with you, my peace I give unto you. Inner peace can only show up when we recognize the truth of our nature. A realization of our oneness with omnipresence brings peace. There's several ways to define peace. There's a Signs of Mind teacher, Hilary Manley, and she said, peace is not the absence of conflict, but serenity in the midst of it. Isn't that a great definition? I'm thinking she was very familiar with Ernest Holmes, who said peace is a state of inner calm, and an inner calm so complete that nothing can disturb it. I love that from the Bible. Nothing can disturb the calm peace of my soul. Say that with me. Nothing can disturb the calm peace of my soul. I have a wonderful parable that illustrates this definition. There was a king who offered a prize to the artist who would paint the best picture of peace. Many artists tried, and the king looked at all the pictures, and there were only 2 of them that he thought really demonstrated peace, and he had to pick one of them. So one picture was of a beautiful, calm lake, and it was a perfect mirror of peaceful mountains around it. There was a blue sky and fluffy clouds, and everyone who saw it said, this is absolutely the perfect picture of peace. The other picture had mountains in it too, but they were rugged and bare, and there was an angry sky with lightning bolts across it. And down the side of the mountain tumbled a foaming waterfall, and it did not look very peaceful at all. But if you looked really closely at the photo, you could see behind the waterfall a tiny bush growing, and in that there was a crack out of the rocks where this grew, just this little crack. And then nestled in this bush sat a mother bird on a nest, and there in the midst of the storm and this angry rush of water, the mother bird had built a nest and sat upon it and was resting in peace. Excuse me. This picture had won the prize because the king realized peace is not the absence of conflict, it's not the absence of storms, it's not the absence of rough waters, but it's calm and serenity right in the midst of it. Right in the midst of it. And that's what we can experience when we claim peace. I want to tell you a quick story. I was on the water this summer. You may know I have a boat. If you've heard me speak, you know I have a boat. And something happened in the engine. To tell you what really happened is Reverend Cheryl was in the boat behind me, and she said, I don't want to see my husband driving the boat. So the engine stalled because she said that. I really believe that. So So I tried to get it started. I flooded the engine. We're outside the channel. You know what that means? That means you're in the danger zone, heading towards the rocks. And I'm like, okay, God, you got to fix this because, this is a little precarious here. So I ordered everybody to put on their, their life preserves, and I kept on saying, nothing can disturb the calm peace of my soul. Nothing can disturb me. I like to do jingles and chants. Nothing can disturb the calm peace of my. I had an idea what to do, and everything turned out beautifully, and everybody was safe. And I was just so amazed, and I think it's from prayer and meditation, from so much prayer and meditation, that even in the midst of danger, of serious danger, hole in the boat, water in the boat, bad stuff, that you can really have peace. And this is what we can experience. But it happens as we recognize the truth of our nature. And as we have two things. One of them is self-acceptance. Self-acceptance comes when we eliminate self-flagellation, and that is so hard to do. The ego thrives on it. We condemn, we criticize ourselves, we judge, and it's just awful. We just merely make the decision to forgive yourself for whatever you've done, as whatever you've done, however you've judged it, and realize that you've gone through that circumstance to propel yourself to a higher spiritual frequency. I went through that circumstance to propel myself to a higher spiritual frequency. Say that with me. I went through that circumstance to propel myself to a higher spiritual frequency. And you know what forgiveness is about? It's real simple. It's about giving up the demand that something be different than it was. Giving up the demand that you would have reacted differently. Giving up the demand that the circumstances would have been different. And so you just let go of the demand. And as we give up the demand, what happens is that we can be at peace. And so not only with ourselves, but others. Now, I don't want to get into forgiveness because I really think that just giving up the demand is the key to forgiveness. But I want to tell you something. If you've known you're forgiven and the circumstance comes up in your brain, I encourage you to say, no, I'm not going to go there. I've already forgiven. I have peace in my mind and heart. Because you can't control the thoughts that come in. You just control if they stay there. And so when you remember when, this one or that one or whatever circumstances happened, and you could have, should have, would have done this or that, say, no, I am not going to go there. I am in charge of my thinking. My thinking is not in charge for me. I've already forgiven. I have peace in my mind and heart. Yes. Okay, so that's one way. The other way to experience peace, we're going to claim peace through meditation and prayer. And, I was downstairs this morning, and I was looking through the books you have down there, and someone's going to grab The Joy of Meditation by Jack and Cornelia Addington. It's in the last bin on the right, the very last book in the back. I got my eye on one book in there, too. And so our willingness to practice meditation and prayer, and you know what? Your ego doesn't want to practice meditation. I'm just telling you, your ego wants to decorate the Christmas tree. Your ego wants to, go out and listen to live music. Your ego wants to get on the phone, and your ego loves social media, Facebook, and all that stuff. And your ego doesn't want to meditate. But that's why we have one of our faculties is will. I'd love to give a talk one time on Unity's interpretation of the 12 disciples, which is the 12 faculties within. And one of them is will. You have the power to say, no, I'm going to sit down here and practice meditation. Meditation is just about being as silent as much as possible. And when thoughts come in, letting them go. There's many ways to do it. You can do mantras. In fact, in that book downstairs, The Joy of Meditation by the Addingtons, they offer many techniques to meditate, but it's about silencing the mind as much as possible. Who's familiar with Joel Goldsmith? Oh, good. Joel Goldsmith said, famous New Thought author, meditation is much like inviting God to enter us or to speak to us or to make itself known to us. It's not an attempt to reach God, since God is omnipresence. Where God is, I am. God is, since we're one, so there's no need to reach God. The purpose is to be still and let the awareness of God permeate us. Where we start with the realization that where I am, God is, and therefore we seek a state of stillness in which we may become consciously aware of that presence. The more that we're willing to do that, the more that we're willing to be in charge of our thinking and we're willing to take time to quiet down our mind, we are going to have a wonderful experience and permanent experience of peace. I want to end with a prayer, but I want to just kind of switch gears here and talk to you about some gifts that you can give this Christmas. I encourage you to give the gifts of listening, really, truly listening. Don't be thinking about what your response is. Don't interrupt. Don't dream. Don't be thinking about, your Christmas gift list. Listen. Give appreciation. It can be really simple. That is one of the biggest gifts that we can. Go into the grocery clerk and say, thank you, you've done such a great job. Look for something to praise and do it. And heartfelt appreciation can be remembered for a lifetime, as can a compliment, a sincere compliment. You did a great job. That was a wonderful meal. Or make someone's day. Or, or the gift of the gift of a smile. The other day, I wasn't feeling so hot this week. If you can't tell, I'm sounding a little nasal. And, I had to get out and do something that was imperative for my brother and I have a corporation. And I was walking along, trying to plaster a smile on my face and breathe at the same time. And all these people were smiling at me, and it just made me feel so fantastic, just the gift of a smile, the gift of kindness. My very dear friend, Dr. Barbara Gold-Branson, wrote a book entitled Authentic Kindness, The Path to Peace, Love, and Joy. Just be kind. Go out and do something kind. Think to yourself, what can I do kind today? And you will receive divine ideas. The gift of affection. Just a hug, a simple hug, no moving parts, no batteries, no monthly payments and fees, inflation-proof, non-taxable. In fact, it's quite relaxable. It can't be stolen, it won't pollute. One size fits all, do not dilute. It uses little energy, but results enormously. Relieves your tension and your stress, invigorates your happiness, combats depression, makes you beam, and elevates your self-esteem. Your circulation, it corrects without unpleasant side effects. It is, I think, the perfect drug. May I prescribe, my friend, the hug. So I call upon you today to give these beautiful gifts. I call upon you to meditate. I call upon you to actually have a conversation with God, Spirit, Infinite Intelligence, whatever you call this power. I call God Gotti. I kind of like that affectionate thing. And I was like, okay, Gotti, what's next? What are we doing now? Okay, Gotti, I need special dispensation today. Whatever, just have a day-long conversation with the presence and power. Be present. And I call upon you, claim that gift of peace, and then you'll be a mirror of gift into the world. And then won't we really, truly, truly honor and demonstrate these principles that we teach in New Thought, practical spirituality. This is the absolute truth, and so begins your lesson. Let's go within for prayer. Could we please breathe in through the nose? Hold it for a count of 4 and exhale through the mouth. Hold out the exhale. Breathe in through the nose. Hold it. Exhale through the mouth. Hold the exhale. And continue in this manner of breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth. This is from Ernest Holmes' meditation. Please flow with these words, and I speak them in the first person. Be still and know that I am God. I am the Christ, the living Son, the living God within me. I am the principle of peace. I am the manifestation of love within me. My mind is poised in peace and beauty. All sense of fear or doubt is gone. I rest in the calm, trust, and rely on the law of spirit to bring good into my experience. And so as I celebrate this season of peace, love, and joy, I go forward with a sense of enthusiasm, expectancy, and excitement. I go forth trusting and knowing that I am divinely guided in all ways, always. I trust the process of life. I find myself in the right place at the right time. I experience divine synchronicity, and I am so grateful for it. I see it wherever I go and for whatever I do. And I am so energized and enlivened with this divine idea. And for this I give thanks, and so it is. Amen. Amen. That was on page 264 of the Science of Mind textbook, at least the first part of it was. Let's sing Jingle Bells. You know, I like to write jingles. I changed the words to Jingle Bells. Let's sing this. We start with Dashing Through the Snow. It's on the handout, and also I gave you something to meditate on. I live in love and light. I let go of yesterday. My life is filled with peace, and every day I pray. I'm awake to the power I am, standing in the light. I accept what it's my divine birthright. I'm awake to the power I am, I'm standing in the light. I accept abundance now, it's my divine birth. I encourage you to sing that every day throughout the season. I bless you, I appreciate you, and I want you to know that I love being here, and I really appreciate you having me here. And I looked in my notes, and I've been teaching here for, it's going to be, I don't know, I think I started in 2011. Thank you so much.